You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 489, our coverage or breakdown of Metamorphosis, which is the, 200th episode now in the Bad Batch Season 2. We're going to give you kind of like a full breakdown of, as we normally would, and really get into the return of the Zillo Beast again. And I got to give credit where credit's due. I'm going to bring on somebody that you're probably familiar with. His name is Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. Great. I really liked your title card, by the way. You gave it the whole, like the old 50s, 60s kind of pulpy feel for this episode. So good job there. How are you doing?
I'm doing a little bit better now than I was before. Because
what happened?
Well, right before I'm pulling up the card so people can actually see this card too, by the way, so they don't, for those that maybe didn't follow us on social media.
Oh, shame on you for not doing that, if that's the case.
But no, so I had a mild panic attack because I thought I broke the website earlier. I was trying, my provider gave me this new little, this new tool. They're like, hey, we're going to give it to you for 30 days. It's free. Just try it out. See what you like. You can cancel if you don't like it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. We'll see what it's all about. So I'm out there doing it. And I got to go out there and I had to attach it to a domain. I was like, oh, I've got a development domain and stuff. I'll do it that way. Well, I guess I didn't do it right because all of a sudden then our website was under construction and I couldn't point back to it at all. And I was like, oh my God, I think I've broken
it. Yeah.
I've broken myself and I've broken Cantina Cast. Everything is falling apart. The world is ending.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite that dramatic, but I was saying some words that I can't say on TV here, but still, we got it working. Everything's working. Everything's fine. How are you?
Who is this?
Who is this?
Well, good. I'm glad everything worked out. I'm glad we're still up online. And if you want to find us, cantinacast.com, where you can see all of Jonesy's hard work. So,
but to your point, though, the Zillo Beast thing, that was fun. I mean, it was a fun episode. So it was really cool to be able to take a moment from that episode and make a title card from it that just screamed. And I love this. I did this for the Book of Boba Fett 1 year later. And it was just this idea that you kind of take it out of the pages like a folded piece of paper, but you get this pulpy kind of feel.
Right.
And this just screams it. It just begged for it, right? And to be able to kind of throw there, I could just see like these old 50s black and white, Attack of the 50-foot, whatever, and all this other stuff. Yeah. So it just fed right into it. So it was just way too much fun to do it.
And there's actually a precedent here. There's a history that goes with the Zillo Beast that we'll get into before we get into the breakdown, because I think it's important. It's relevant. It certainly has relevance to why the Zillo Beast is back and kind of its origins, I think, are always very cool. So before we do that, though, you've got a whole plethora of news. Where do you want to start here?
Oh my gosh! Well, I'll tell you what. Let's always start with Celebration because that's right around the corner. Two more guests were announced. Michelle Long, of course, and Simon Cassianidis, who was Axe Woves, right? From the season 2 of The Mandalorian, although does not appear to be in season 3.
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Right, yeah. So anyway, no surprises, I think, necessarily, but really cool that they will both be there and announced. Michelle Long doing a fantastic job as Omega, of course. So Celebration news. The next one was one that kind of escaped my radar, and I haven't really been able to completely nail this one down. But there was a source over in discussing film that The Acolyte has 2 additional directors that have been attached. So one is pretty known to a lot of people. That's Alex Garcia Lopez. And then the other one is kind of a newcomer. It's only the last 5 years. And I believe his name is Kogo Nada, a South Korean filmmaker.
Okay.
So Alex Garcia Lopez, we might not know the name, but you know what they've done. Because they were involved with Daredevil, Punisher, and the Luke Cage, all of the Netflix series that you love, including that epic. Yeah. And if you remember that one epic 11-minute hallway battle scene or whatever, like the jailbreak scene in Daredevil.
Yep, Daredevil.
That was just a miracle that they got in one take, but it was just fantastic. I mean, that was done on his watch, but he's also done The Witcher, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Cowboy Bebop. So pretty exciting when you bring that, like some of those episodes that they were part of, like that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then Kogonada did a movie called Columbus with John Cho, which again is a really slow burn, a very different movie, especially for like a John Cho type of movie for those who are John Cho fans of the actor.
Yeah.
But it was shown at Sundance, it was shown at another film festival. So to even get invited and selected in those is a big deal.
Right.
And apparently it's about Columbus, Indiana, not Ohio, for anybody curious. But again, one of those slow burn kind of, really thinking type of movies. So it's really interesting to get a different dynamic for directors of what we might have in anticipation of The Acolyte and what that might actually mean. But any thoughts on those two? Are you familiar with them? Probably familiar with Alex Garcia Lopez, but have you heard of the other?
Lopez I'm familiar with. The other I'm not familiar with. And I think my thing is always, I enjoy the fact that they're bringing in new directors because they're able to kind of put their blueprint, their DNA, right, their signature on the episodes. And I think these guys have done a pretty good job so far in all of the TV series that we've had now with the multiple directors that we've had. They've done a really good job of ensuring that they stay true to the story, right? We're not getting away from what Star Wars means or feels. It may look a little bit different, feel a little bit different, but at its core, it still remains Star Wars. So I think they've done a pretty good job. So I'm excited. I mean, like you said, it's always good to get fresh perspectives and new direction in here, as long as you don't stray too far away. I think at some point, though, if I could just quickly, at some point, I think that let's see, the tapestry that is Star Wars today may at some point evolve beyond that. And what I mean by that, we're seeing that kind of now with like, the animation stuff. It's probably going to happen there before it happens on screen, whether it be TV or film. But I think at some point, right, this thing we've always said Star Wars is bigger than one person. It's bigger than Disney. At some point, I think it will get there. But for now, I'm pretty happy with what they're doing. And they're bringing in these new directors like this. So,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And other more shilly news, I guess, if you'd like to call us that, over on StarWars.com, catching up on the news from the last week or so with all the Mandalorian excitement. We missed a few things. And I don't know how I missed this one because Xbox is determined to try to get everyone Xbox and the Star Wars community that hasn't had one. So for those listening in, we're actually showing on screen here at cantinacast.com/YouTube the Xbox Series X Beskar Mandalorian edition. So this is a special print Xbox. They also have a Series S, which is the Grogu one. So it's black and green.
So you got to get both, right?
You got to get, that's going to be the question here. And then they also have this little green Grogu controller that comes with like a little jacket, like the burlap jacket, the hoodie that he has.
Right there. Oh, wait, just stop right there. Like if that's $1,000, I will buy that little jacket thing alone just to put my PlayStation 5 controller in there.
And it looks like it's all like actually soft and a little bit plushy too.
Yeah.
But the big one here, so before I get into the big one, so this is a Microsoft rewards thing. So if you remember, we talked about this a week or two back where they were having another rewards thing for Celebration.
Yeah.
So this is another one of those Microsoft rewards. So it's unclear if you're actually going to be able to buy this because this window for the sweepstakes is it begins March 16th, so you can't sign up quite yet, and ends in mid-May, like May 11th or something like that. Now, you enter in, I don't know how many of these prizes they have available, but one person, only one, Albert, just you, can win what you have on screen here, this adult-sized gaming station Pram XL, which you would sit in this pod so that you can do your gaming. Now, what is in this pod? I don't know. Is it just a chair? I don't know. Does it have a screen? I don't know. But it has a headset hanging from it inside of it, kind of for scale and all of that. And it's pretty badass, not gonna lie. Like, I don't know where this would go. It probably goes in the middle. Like, you don't need a coffee table, you need a pram. Your kid doesn't need a bed, they need a pram. I mean, there's a lot of options for what you can do with this.
Yeah.
Not everybody has a game room and stuff like that, But still, one lucky person in the sweepstakes would do this. So I would be watching the Microsoft Rewards if this is interesting to you. If you do Microsoft Rewards, all that good stuff. Again, it starts March 16th. So just kind of fun.
As a purely Apple person, I find this horribly offensive. Number one. Number two.
Your jealousy is palpable, by the way.
Yeah. I would not sit in, like, if they brought it to my door and set it up for me and it was mine, I would sit in it. I wouldn't take pictures. I would tell no one. But I don't know that I would, like, this isn't, like, I'm more excited about the controller. Like, I would put this on eBay or put it on Macari or something immediately. But I would keep the little baby Yoda, jacket thing right there for the controllers. Or, put it put a cat in it or something.
Yeah, now I'm not gonna lie. I have the Darth Vader PS4, which is really cool, and this would be a nice compliment on the other side of that fence to have an exclusive. But again, I don't know if we're gonna be able to buy these or not. I don't have a Series X or a Series S or any of that. But again, how would you choose? Because most people can't afford to go buy both.
Yeah.
But I like it. You can set them next to each other, facing each other. It's cute.
Sorry, our third member of the show is here with us tonight in this live chat. She says, this is Lauren, by the way. Lauren says, you can sit in it and pretend to be a giant baby.
There you go.
So,
a 50-year-old giant baby that can
put the cat in it. There you go. I'll put Sabine and Ezra in there.
All right. So to continue the shill off here for the Mando Mania, just a few of other things here that were broadcast that some people might be interested in. I think this is way overpriced, by the way. The Astro Gaming Company, they do headsets and things like that. They came out with the A30s, which again is one of the higher, more premium tiers, a Mandalorian version of that. So you have a Mudhorn on one ear on the outside, and the other one has a silhouette of the Mandalorian. $250 for this. Pretty pricey, not going to lie. But in the Cube Factory, we got Tamagotchi, baby. Tamagotchi are still a thing, apparently. Yeah. So you got a blue Grogu model, and then you have a kind of a regular edition with a custom silicone top on it. And then, of course, this is more like in Steph and Lauren's field where they love the physical planners and stuff. They have a This is the Way planner. These are all available right now, by the way. And this one is marked down about half off, which again, if you were really crafty, you could probably do it yourself. But This is the Way life planner is pretty cool. But this is like the super adorable one.
Oh,
it's a Grogu and the Pram Bitty Boomers Bluetooth speaker. So anybody that's seen the different Bluetooth speakers out there for Star Wars and all that have an idea. But it's super adorable, super cute. Looks like Disney Emoji Blitz. Which, no surprisingly, Disney Emoji Blitz is next on the thing here. So they're having an event that I believe began. So they've got a Bo-Katan image here. So again, fun game, mobile game for those that are interested. It's free if you want it to be free, but it's just one of those tile swapping games. So
I like it. I used to play it a lot when it first. We both did, I think.
We played a ton of this game. Yeah. Especially when they did the whole Star Wars expansion. They have like a whole area for Star Wars.
Well, see, that's why I stopped. Okay, so we really shouldn't be talking about this, but I stopped playing because somehow you got like the Star Wars tiles, and I don't remember how you did it, but I was like, so then I went to go try to do it, and it was no longer available. And I'm like, screw Jones, man, I'm not doing this. He's got all the Star Wars stuff I don't. I'm not playing this game anymore. So I was out at that point. But how did you do that? What's your secret?
If I told
Dr.
you,
Jones?
Yeah, if I told you, no time for love, Dr. Jones. Yeah,
right.
I can't reveal my secrets
right,
or my sources.
All right.
So that's the news. Not too bad, right?
No, not too bad at all, considering we're 12 minutes in. So we still got 3 minutes to burn.
Right. Speaking of time to burn, we should do a little bit of Patreon love. Josh C joined our now part of the tribe tier, so thank you, Josh, for joining us here in the last couple of days. He joins these other illustrious members of that tier: Mike Borda, Rob, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Shackman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, and of course our Delusions Grandeur tier: Rod, Kathy, and Hard Counter. Thank you everyone for so much. If you're interested in Patreon, checking it out. Just to say you like the show, you like what we're doing, it's just about cantinacast.com/Patreon. If you want some access to exclusive content, it starts at the After Dark tier. Again, cantinacast.com/Patreon. We'd love for you guys to check it out. And then in our chat, again, we talked about the live stream before. In our chat tonight, Jonathan, Stephanie, Music Train, Sky, welcome Sky to Discord. If you want to check out Discord, cantinacast.com/Discord. Lauren, Nase, JJ Skywalker, Riley, Qui-Gon J, others in the background. Thank you all for coming out and for supporting the show in the live stream and for joining the chat. A lot of fun Zillow Beast comments already. Of course, Lauren out there repping us on the mod front there. So appreciate everyone joining us there as well. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not a Patreon show, but I have to show, I got something and I need to show everybody because so if you're not part of the Patreon, one of the things we do is show and tell, which I think normally we have Star Wars stuff that we show, although lately it's been a lot of kind of miscellaneous things.
It's like 50-50.
It could be Dungeons and Dragons. It could be, who knows, right? But this is not Star Wars related, although there is a tie to Star Wars at some point. I think, so I just want to show this. Look, I picked this up. So it's the VR2 for PlayStation 5. Nice. And I had to get this because, number one...
Wait, hold on. Did you have a PlayStation 5 before you bought it?
Yeah, I've got a PlayStation 5.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of Horizon, right? That video game. And this has got now the VR version of it, right? It's kind of like a side story thing. But the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge is on here now as well. And so they've redone a couple of the graphics. They've added a couple things as well. So I really like those games. I know if you go and look at I was surprised when you go look at the reviews for Tales of Galaxy's Edge, it's kind of like 50%, 60%. And I don't agree with a lot of the feedback. So if you have VR, whether it's Oculus 2, PC, PSVR 2, and you're a Star Wars fan, go play those games. They're very short. I will say that. I mean, that's some of the feedback is that it's short, but
Right.
the immersiveness that it gives you is like unparalleled in terms of like what we've ever seen before in video games, simply because it's VR. Even with the graphics, even on like the Oculus 2, the graphics are pretty good. But this really kind of opens up some major doors if they can get like Lucasfilm or Disney or some of these other third-party developers to start building Star Wars games for it, because it's just really, I mean, it kind of is the future in my opinion. So I'm super stoked about it. It's still unopened. I got it in like on Wednesday. It's still just sitting here, but at some point I will open it and start playing with it.
Aren't VR games typically rather short? I mean, they're nothing like the full blown 20-something hour experience or 30-something hour video game. They tend to be in this 10-ish hours, right? Because I mean, there's just so much development that goes into it.
Well, sort of. One, the development time's starting to come down. Two,
Okay.
a lot of like the biggest seller right now is the Oculus 2. And so you've got a limited amount of space on that because everything is remote. When you get to PC games, sky's the limit, right? As long as your hard drive has it or has a hard drive space for it, then it can be as, 40, 50 hours, 60 hours. Now, there are no games at that limit that I'm aware of anyways. There's just now starting to get into like MMO games. So Persistent Worlds, they've got some really great stuff that's kind of like Minecraft, but in 3D. Not Minecraft. They've got a Minecraft as well coming out. But anyway, so, well, no.
I'm getting motion sickness just thinking about it.
Well, yeah. And part of that, too, is starting to go away because the resolutions are getting better. The frame rates are getting better. And so all of that, the bad tech stuff is really what causes the most motion sickness. Once we eliminate that factor, then that should go away. But it is getting better. So
that's exciting. Yeah, these things are really iterative. I mean, if you think about the history of video games in general, it took a long time to get to where we're at.
Right.
And now we're pretty spoiled, and now we're taking it to this next level. But so much development, so much time and effort go into that too. Of what you got to do, you think about all of the things that we experience as a real life scenario, and translating that into a video game within the confines of that is pretty incredible that we're able to do that in the first place.
To bring it back to Star Wars, one of the things I was thinking about the other day is like you and I both played like the TIE Fighter X-Wing series games.
Yeah,
you think about that?
That would be dope.
And, yeah, well, think about where we are with like Squadrons, right? That game came out 2 years ago, and I know love or hate it, had some pretty mixed reviews, but just again the immersiveness that offered, and that was one of the first ones that had kind of like a 3D perspective to it, first iteration of it, but that was a big milestone. So it won't be long before we are kind of immersed in these things with the graphics, that the PS5 and some of these newer systems can offer. So I think it's gonna be pretty exciting as a Star Wars fan if they start cranking out some more games.
And you think about the experiences of what other people have with the Formula One kind of racing. They have the actual apparatus you can have in your living room. Yeah. The flight simulators. I've seen how people go all in on some of that stuff for this really immersive experience, and adding VR to that is just a natural next step. But holy smokes! I mean that's something special. Of course, they do this on the professional level, right? This is how pilots train. I mean, they're basically in a giant VR cockpit.
Exactly.
Right. It's pretty neat to be able to bring that home and continue to do that. But anyway, we've probably gone on quite a while.
Now we're at the 18-minute mark. So from there, let's get into our breakdown. By the way, we're on 489. We've only got 11 episodes before we've hit 500, and we've not talked about this.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, we got to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, well, that story of our show here. Figure out what we're doing.
The success of this show is built on not knowing what we're doing the week before. So
you know who also doesn't know what they're doing, Albert?
Who's
Disney
that?
Plus, but their skip intro button for you.
I know. Why they regressed?
Went back to what it was before. They teased you for 2 episodes, and now they're like, you know what?
Yeah,
no
screw that, dude.
That's too much. That costs way too much money to do it that way. We're going to go back to the old reliable.
That's fair. All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said it, but yeah, I can't believe they went backwards on that. Okay, so let's talk about this episode. Before we do you want to cover like the Zillo Beast, kind of a quick breakdown on what the Zillo Beast is for anyone that didn't watch the Clone Wars? Because again, this is a throwback to 2 episodes that premiered, I think, in season 2.
Yeah, season 2, 10 years ago. These came out. It's pretty incredible. It's been that long. So yeah, season 2 of the Clone Wars, episodes 18 and 19, which were titled "The Zillo Beast" and "The Zillo Beast Strikes Back," which are inspiration for the title card this week. But the general idea, though, is that they were the Empire, or not the Empire, the Republic was testing this bomb. It went off, but it awakened this ancient creature, right, the Zillo Beast, and it fed off electricity, and it grows these ginormous sizes, and so on and so forth. But the really important part about all of that, and that was all on Malastare, by the way. The really important part of though is that we learned in that episode is that the armor is actually impervious to lightsabers. It cannot be pierced by lightsabers. So they took this creature back to Coruscant. They were able to subdue it. They bring it back to Coruscant so they could study it, which really just meant they were going to torture it. And yes, the Republic was torturing this creature
because that's the safest thing to do.
It's the most responsible thing. Let's take it to the most populated place in the galaxy. This giant beast that
what
clearly
could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Uh-huh.
So of course it goes rampant. We got our monster, King Kong, Godzilla type of episode from it, which was really unique and different at the time as well. And so they were finally able to subdue it with this toxic gas, which kind of pissed it off in the first place. But Palpatine was really intrigued though, because they're kind of watching this as it goes, and Palpatine's visage is almost like egging it on, the way that they brought all this to it.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Boll, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Boll, was the one who was tasked with studying this creature. They ended up killing it, but they wanted to study it so they could clone it because, in Palpatine's words, this could help bring an end to the war, right? And you could just think of all of the different ways that this would be useful, right? They didn't want this death to be in vain. And so, those were those two episodes. That was the course of all of that. Of course, that had Anakin and Obi-Wan and all that good stuff in it. Now, the Zillo Beast also appeared in another piece of content, which gets largely overlooked, which was the Age of Resistance comic book for Kylo Ren. Now, it's a very different scenario. Kylo Ren is kind of asserting himself. It's a kind of a thump of chest for him. He's not really respected, so on and so forth. So he's with this tribe, and they're the Zillo Beast is just wrecking shop. Now, in this one, Kylo Ren actually goes into the mouth of the beast, goes at the belly, and kills it from the inside. So clearly, while the armor is tough on the outside, still soft and squishy on the inside.
Yeah.
So they're able to kill it. But anyway, that often, and by the way, gross. So, but I mean, that's those are the three pieces of content we've had a Zillo Beast in the past. But I wanted to bring that comic one up because it is often overlooked. But again, so this episode, when they start talking about the analysis at the end of it, that's what you're seeing. That's the reference callback to all of this other content that had been in Clone Wars about what they were wanting to do with it. And you could think of all the applications, trooper armor, ship armor, Death Star armor. I mean, all these things that you could apply this for if you're able to crack that code,
right,
is what they're after. So that's kind of the importance of this episode. And the continued importance of it.
Right. So when that episode came out, it was kind of a love letter to Godzilla. This creature, I know you touched on it, but I want to kind of hit it a little bit harder because there are a number of things that are very similar between Godzilla and the Zillo Beast. Primarily, they both feed off energy, right? So they get more powerful. This one literally grows larger as it eats more energy. I think there's been a couple versions of Godzilla where that's happened, but in essence, they both become more powerful with the amount of energy they consume, right? So that's kind of similarity, number one. Number two, their origins are exactly the same. Godzilla was created by the Japanese it was after, World War II. They had just been bombed, of course. And this was a way to kind of show, like, this is what some of the after effects could possibly be from atomic energy. And so the origin of Godzilla is such that there's a bomb that goes off and it awakens Godzilla from the middle of the earth. Exactly what happens here with the Zillo Beast. They drop a bomb. It's under Malstar and it surfaces for the first time. So similarities there. And then to make matters worse, we were talking about in that second episode, when they take it back to Coruscant, there is a gratuitous scene where I think it's Palpatine, Amidala, and I think Anakin's in there. It might even be Kenobi, but they're all running like through the streets of Coruscant. And they have that gratuitous shot where they're like over Palpatine's shoulder looking back, from like the old Japanese Godzilla movies where, he's rampaging through the city. So it was all really kind of a throwback to that, but it was such a huge success. And a lot of folks really have been asking the question, like, what happened to the Zillo Beast? Almost as what happened to the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, or right. Now, what was the line Kia Dimundi used? What about the Wookiees on, was it Kashyyyk? I forget. It doesn't matter.
I can't remember.
It's a bad joke. But so this has gone largely untouched for a very long time. And it kind of brings me to the first question, I guess, to kind of open up into initial thoughts. Like, and people have already said it in the chat here. So we brought back the Zillo Beast. Yay. I think that was cool. We got to see it again to kind of tie up a loose end from the Clone Wars. But then we tabled it again. Like, it's still around and they're still going to do things on it. So
right.
While I enjoyed the episode a lot, I really like this episode for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with the main mythos of this, of course. I've got some problems where it did feel like another mission of the week kind of thing, Sid's side quest, if you will. But I don't know, like, why this is now the second time they've brought it up. I would have to think at this point it's gonna play into this season. Like, why would you bring this up again and not have a payoff in this season, maybe next season, this series, maybe another series? But I guess the question I'm asking is why? Why the Zillo Beast in this series, particularly at episode, what are we at, 11 at this point of season 2?
I mean, it's a great question. And I think the unfortunate answer is it doesn't mean anything for the Zillo Beast or that technology. I think it is going to go back to that this was a pointer quest to accomplish a few things at the very end here of one, bringing Omega back to the or really putting Omega in the forefront of the Empire, from a cloning perspective with
Sure.
Nalase.
Right.
And then also to, bring the Bad Batch back into like what's going on in Tansis and get them to push them towards Echo and Rex and towards this final destination of where we know they're heading, right, in some way. And so I think
the galaxy's largest MacGuffin then. And I'm fine with that, honestly. Like, if that's really how they did this to kind of tie it all together, then okay, I can take that.
It kind of feels that way at the very least, right? And I would love for it to be more, but again, we know from all the content that's come later on that we know that it hasn't matriculated in or hasn't come to fruition in any other kind of way. I mean, maybe you could say they've learned something and applied some of this to the Death Star, right? Maybe in that way, but again, nothing else that we've seen.
No,
aside from
nothing official.
Yeah, because the rest of it just feels like really thick armor, right? We know that they didn't really make anything special with troopers or anything like that. Nothing that really resonated, or at least that made canon, at least for where we're at right now. And again, it has to all fit somewhere. And so unfortunately, it kind of feels like it was just more of a giant, like MacGuffin's probably a good way of saying it, in order to redirect things. I mean, we got a lot of great Republic Commando type of clone commando action here. They seem to be the prominent force right now. That was kind of cool. But other than that, I don't know that I think it really just served that purpose. I mean, which I was totally fine with, because I think the scenes that we got with Nalase and Dr. Hemlock and Emery, I want those glasses, Emery. Those are really cool. Like the little red with the grid on them and stuff like that. Those are pretty cool. I'd take those. Way better than these like blue light ones I usually wear. You're on mute.
I was still laughing because I said those are your Bono glasses.
Yeah, they are.
I don't. I mean, the other thing I was just thinking about as you were talking there, the other, I guess, tie back, because I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be a payoff, but I just find it weird that they brought it up again, and it still lives. Just the cloning aspect of it, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later, because they mentioned that there were a number of these ships coming into Mount Tantus, and they had assets, right, plural. So could they be cloning other things, right? Is the cloning arm of the Empire so huge that they've got multiple scientists working on this? They're doing more. I mean, because we've been pretty at least I have been personally, very hyper focused on the fact that they're probably trying to clone Palpatine's body, create a force sensitive clone of him for contingency later down the road, right? But the reality is, with the Kaminoans out of the picture, they have the ability now to clone anything they want, right? Zillo beasts or other beings who knows what they could be doing. But I think it opens the doors to Mount Tantus being more than just a single purpose location for Palpatine. It could be a lot of other things. And I'm not sure that they'll go anywhere with this at all, but it does at least explain how devoted, I guess, the Empire and specifically Palpatine is to the science and the technology behind it all.
Well, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I agree. I think that's another aspect of it, is that the Empire or the Republic was exploring their own cloning in parallel with what was going on in Kamino, and completely outside of what was going on in Kamino. Mm-hmm. And Lama, the exchange with Lama Su kind of leads you to believe some of that, the words that Dr. Hemlock was talking about, strongly suggest that. And I don't even suggest, I think he basically told it. Again, that there are other things at play of how good the Republic is. And that is why the Kaminoans were so important on that level, right? And Lama Su's words that we'll talk about later tonight really just make that an emphatic statement in that regard of you have the resources, but you don't have the expertise. I mean, that's a sweet burn, Lama Su. Nicely done. But I think that it's an important thing not to lose sight of too, that this is not new for the Empire, not new for the Republic. They've wanted to do this forever. They've been trying, but this is why you went to Kamino in the first place. This is why they were the cream of the crop. And now you have wiped out most of an entire civilization. and now you are stuck, with with your decision. This is what you're left from your choices, your decisions.
Yeah. So I guess some of the other opening thoughts I had, it was a very dark episode, and I don't mean like, symbolic. Like, it was dark, like physically dark. I couldn't,
Right.
unless I was in my, in the studio with all the lights off. There was times when I couldn't see it. If there was any kind of light, it just was a very, very dark episode. And I get it. I mean, I think it worked where it needed to. But yeah, very dark in terms of the color palette that they used. I enjoyed the tension. The music, the ambient music that was going on through all of it was really good. Helped kind of add to the scene.
Did you get the total like Aliens vibe
Yeah, for sure.
from it, especially early on? I loved it. I thought it was just a great homage, but also just like you said, just a great tone, man. The feeling of that environment and the tension that it creates, and that horror aspect thing. Going around the different aspects of the ship as it's in different states of disarray. I don't know about you, but I follow those ambient channels on YouTube that have a scene, and they just play the music and stuff behind it.
Oh yeah, Disney has
oh my
for
gosh.
Star Wars.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there actually, and I was like, man, I could totally see them doing this with these different scenes and having just kind of eerie or these kind of
creepy
synth music, these Enya type of things going on. Would just be really cool.
I can't believe you brought up Enya. The show has no limits.
It does not.
So, but that's what I had. I mean, and overall, I would say I enjoyed the episode a lot. Like, again, it's another. I love when my Clone Wars is in my Bad Batch, right? And this is exactly what it was. It was kind of like, oh, cool, we're wrapping putting a bow on the Zillo beast, and we undid the bow again. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a good episode. I still question though, like, I mean, we're on episode 11 now, and I'm thinking, all right. And let me just say this: as much as I enjoyed this episode, and as much as I've enjoyed the season, and I think I've been pretty consistent saying that I've enjoyed all the episodes, and some of them weren't, my favorite, but I've enjoyed all of them.
The last one maybe a little was at the bottom, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think that's why they took away the skip. I think they heard that and were like, no, we'll pull it from this guy. But I feel duped, man, because I know a number of folks that have saw the first 15 episodes or 14, and two of them, and I'm looking at you and I'm going to call you out on this. Two of them told me straight to my face, no, man, this is not a mission of the week season, right? Totally different. And I'm sorry, like 11 episodes in, it kind of feels that way still. Not necessarily a bad thing, because I mean, it sounds like they're at least starting to shed the idea of Sid being around, which I think is promising, and I think it's probably about time. But it does still feel like this was kind of the same formula that we had in season 1. And did it work? I mean, I like the episode, so I guess it did. I just was hoping for something different. I guess that's all.
Yeah, I hear you, and I don't know that I agree entirely with it. I believe that there has been it has felt a little bit different than season 1 in that regard. It wasn't as overt or as obvious, but it's still very much there. They're still very much doing missions for Sid every other week, and it's not even every third week or something, like we thought maybe this would get more and more, spread out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gone back to being doubled down on it lately. But again, I think where I might disagree is that I think with this episode, it does feel like a pivot back to, this is the run up for the end, right? So there might be one other quote unquote, I don't know if mission episode's the right one, but kind of a unimportant overall, like where they're ending up story run. Mm-hmm. But it for the most part, I think this is that turning point of like, okay, now we're showing Tantus, we're showing the stakes, we're showing the players who are at play, we're showing other motivations, we're bringing Palpatine into it, we're talking about these really big topics now, and it's really and we're starting to expose the Bad Batch and Omega in different ways that have no choice but to come together. So I think it's finally kind of coming to that moment. It took a little longer than I think we would hoped. I think we had hoped this would have started happening a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
But I think I'm with you overall, though. Still really enjoyable season. Maybe one exception to it that it wasn't as fun as the rest of them, but the rest have been really great and entertaining and fun. And Dragon of the Abyss, and actually we're talking about this yesterday, of just the interestingness of the episodes, and it depends on what you want to get out of it, though, too. And I can understand, and I'm with you, man, from what we heard from other people about all this and swearing up and down it wasn't this or it was that. This is why you can't really trust some people that get all the advanced, screenings and stuff, because I don't know. You don't want to call anybody out for that kind of thing, but also it just doesn't always seem to jive with reality. And maybe they're coming off the high of being able to watch all of it or being able to get that experience or whatever it is. But
yeah,
until it gets in the
wild,
wild,
it comes from their point. There's a certain, I hate to say certain point of view, but it is kind of like their point of view is skewed, right? Probably
Well,
and
I don't
that's
want to call
fine.
anybody's integrity, and I know you're not doing that, but I mean,
No.
and that's why I'm hesitating. I don't want to call anybody's integrity and end up saying, well, you got a special advanced screening over, therefore you have to be more positive about it. Because if I would have seen this season, I probably would have been like, yeah, really enjoyable. It's probably leaning a little less in that space, but it is still there. But there's stuff to really grab onto as you go through. If that's what you're really in there for, if you're really looking for that, you'll get flavors of it. But again, we'll have to see what the payoff is. We're not there yet. We still got time, but I'm hoping this is that pivot episode that we finally now start to have the heavier hitter episodes week after week, and with this one.
Okay. Did you have any other kind of opening thoughts before we get into?
We're still on opening thoughts. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've already we've touched on some other things already. So
yeah, we've touched on a lot of things, but no, yeah, we can get moving now.
So you mentioned the alien aspect of it. I kind of have that first bullet as being alien. It did feel like that. I love just the quick shots and seeing this ship being destroyed. So
the tail rotating in the shadows.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's you can even see like as the camera's panning from left to right, you see the electricity going off in some of the windows, these tiny little windows. You can see it flashing in there. So they did a really good job with that.
The drool and the sticky ichor stuff. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, the commando we saw the commandos, the clone commandos in the trailer. We finally got them in this episode. Not at all what I thought was going to happen, but that's cool. Was this Scorch? Is that who this one was?
People keep calling this Scorch. The only reference they had, I listened to the audio description as well. They just call him the captain. They did it once.
Okay.
And there was nothing else that says this is Scorch. It is a clone. These are all clones because they also called them clone commandos.
Right.
So, and again, that's all you can do all that on Disney. Just go to your captions area and you can turn on the audio description for folks who can't see as well. But
okay.
No indication that it's Scorch.
Yeah.
So I think,
and it feels like they would have just done it. Like why hide it? You know what I mean? Like he's not. I don't know.
In theory, those squads could all have existed, and they're all canon, even though we don't know if they're canon or not with Omega and Delta squads. So,
okay,
but it doesn't matter one way or the other. I don't know, but they call him. They said his designation is captain, though. That was at the very end of the episode.
But yeah, the first opening and just kind of summarize. I mean, everything that happens with everything from that poor sap getting eaten allegedly. It was very dark, and now I'm literally talking about darker in terms of like this felt like Star Wars horror in space. Where if you scream in space, no one hears it, kind of thing. It was just the imagery and the way they were cutting back and forth, and they pulled away, and then they left some of it to your imagination. What was going on with the electrostaff laying there? It was very, very different than I think we've ever had. I mean, kind of scary. I mean, didn't scare me because I'm kind of over that stuff, but. But yeah, it was different, very different. I enjoyed it. Like this was. I was like, whoa, we got an episode here.
And I really like Omega's reaction to it. Like when Tech says that they were likely eaten.
Right.
I mean, her reaction was just perfect. I laughed at it when she repeated herself. They were eaten. It was just so perfect, and her youthful inexperience and innocence came out yet again in a way that all the confidence and everything else that's always so there and so forward with Omega. Like every once in a while, you're reminded that she hasn't experienced all of these types of really crazy, weird things in the galaxy. That, yes, there are things that will eat you, and that have ate this entire crew somehow. Right. Somehow this thing escaped. We don't really know how it got out of the tank or out of its holding cell either. Maybe something malfunctioned or whatever seems to be most likely. But yeah, it was just interesting that a smaller Zillo beast was able to somehow devour these things. And kind of why is it that the tech in the kit was interesting, or was just
I'm calling sabotage.
Okay,
like somebody sabotaged the ship and allowed that thing to escape. But who knows? I mean, it's not really not. We'll probably never know, honestly, and that's fine. That's really probably more exciting, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I enjoyed that, and then from there, like we get into that really eerie, scary scene and go directly into Mount Tantus, which was like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, oh, thank God we're here. Let's get this going. I want to know what's going on. So we're introduced to Dr. Hemlock. What's going on with his hand? Like they kept showing it.
Well, and they emphasizing it in the audio description as well. They made a point of, he clasps his gloved hand. They didn't make any bigger deal with that, but they actually mentioned it twice of him doing it. Now, granted, they're explaining what's on screen.
Sure.
But it was interesting that was, they don't call out everything that's going on the screen, of course, because it's just too much. But I don't know. I had the same question for you. Is he, did he damage it somehow in some of his experiments, or is it a droid hand? Is it, there's something clearly with it because he did it more than once, but I don't know.
I mean, if I see a black glove on somebody's hand, then the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, it's a cybernetic hand of some sort.
Right.
Like Anakin. the reason it stands out is because, like you said, they did it twice, and sometimes in like real, like in movies, actors will come up with some kind of a physical characteristic or physical trait or tick that a character has, and
Right.
kind of do it. It means nothing other than give that character another layer of dimension. But when Star Wars does it in animation, like it's almost like, hey, look here, guys, this is going to mean something later. So I don't know what they could be signaling. I don't know what the significance is. It's, egg on my face if they don't do that. But I did notice it, and I'm sure everyone else did. And it's probably nothing we should be talking about, but we're going to talk about it. So who knows?
Well, I think I get it. I think it's something, you're right. They made a big enough deal about it visually that for there not to be some reason seems unlikely. Actually, I think they'll probably will show us. There will be something to it, whether it be a big deal or not. Maybe not, but I'm kind of leaning towards it's probably more of a cybernetic hand or something to that effect. It maybe has some bells and whistles in it that he's not used to, or whatever it is, or he's just fascinated by his own technologically advanced person or whatnot.
Maybe he's like Skier and he's got like a Drengear hand or something.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm kidding. And the other that's two shows in a row where we've mentioned the High Republic. We must be like pining for more High Republic content.
Must
bring on Phase 3. So we catch up with Nala Se, and I was not expecting her to be still in prison. Now, good for her for sticking to her guns and not agreeing to help the Empire out with whatever it is they want to do.
Well, so question for you there.
Yeah, okay.
Is it that because of what they did to Camino that she's revolting, or did you think she's always been in that position? Do you think she's always said no, or and now she's just doubling down because of Camino, or do you think she was helping and then she stopped?
I would think that once she found out, she probably stopped because she really didn't have any leverage. Like
Right.
she was brought there. It sounded like they at the end of season 2 they kind of walked her in and said, "We've got great plans for you," or whatever it was they said. And so I had no reason to believe like she would be like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that." Now, depending on what it is they asked her to do, right? If it was immoral or something, or went against her moral code, which the Kaminoans they don't really have one. But if she was against that, then I can see her protesting, and maybe that's kind of the first domino to fall. But I think for me, it would be like, wait a minute, you blew up Camino, or word got around to her, she would shut down at that point. And I think that's when they imprisoned her for unwilling to participate in all of these cloning experiments that they probably had lined up for her. But what do you think?
I hadn't really settled on one way or the other, to be honest with you. It would make sense for her to, but again, the thing with the Kaminoans is that they don't always seem to have a real strong sense of culture. They have a lot of pride in their work and their output and their value, but in their civilization and their beings as a people. But I think this also speaks to that Nala Se might be very different than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, what does that mean with the relationship to Omega? So I think that makes her much more compelling if that were the reason she stopped. And I'm with you. She was there. While she was a prisoner, and I think she probably knew that, she was treated as more of a guest and as a special guest that was able to further some experiments. But again, whatever she's been doing while she's there, maybe she's starting to disagree with it. Might be it's just garbage, whatever it might be. But this event that happened, that seems to make more sense if there were something like that. That, wow, okay, I knew this was bad, but I'm really on the wrong side of this. I'm done, guys. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
So they established Hemlock as kind of like the new man in charge, a new person in charge too, right? He says, "I'm taking over this facility." So I imagine
this is a new character, right? I don't remember him showing up anywhere. I couldn't find anything about him.
No, I didn't even research it. I just saw him and I was like, I've never seen this dude before. He's just got a very unique look, voice as well. I forget the actor. I even looked into that and I didn't recognize the actor, but the voice actor. So, but yeah, I mean, they're kind of establishing him as the new head of this operation. And so that tells me that, either he's going to have a more significant role in this season, or Tantus is going to be kind of a focal point for this larger narrative they're telling with all the stories. And that's if they go that route, right? I'm not saying they are, because we're still a ways from the Filoni or the Mandoverse.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they are kind of establishing him as this kind of main character now. He did mention two quick things that I found interesting. He talked about this great scientific achievement that they're trying to move towards. The first thing that came to mind again is cloning Force sensitives. It could be something else, but I mean, what is the big prize? I mean, that seems like that would be monumental. And Nala Se even says it, I know exactly what Palpatine wants and he's not going to get it from me. Paraphrasing, of course. But he does talk about serving a higher purpose, and that higher purpose would be Palpatine's purpose, right? The higher purpose of his contingency of, what was the whatever I forget the stinking plan now that he had.
Yeah, all with Operation Cinder and everything
Yeah,
that came
Operation
after
Cinder. Right. So
that.
all
Right.
that seems like it's part of it, and that's kind of really what his grand purpose is. But
Well,
before we
again,
move on, yeah,
the question I had in here, or maybe the kind of the thought we might be able to explore a little bit, is that coming off the episode of The Believer, is this another Believer? Or is this guy in it for the science? Right. So we've seen this in Andor, and and we see it with Pershing in Mandalorian, and we have these kind of morally ambiguous characters that I wouldn't even say operate within the gray. They just operate within the science. They just want to see what they can actually do, and they get caught up in now. Hemlock seems a little bit different. He does seem to be enamored with the idea of whatever Palpatine's grand scheming is, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the assumption that it's to transfer a life force from one body to another for immortality, effectively, because that would be a really what other crowning achievement would be more? Because if you think about it, in our own history, in our own mythology, the quest for immortality has always been there. We've seen Indiana Jones movies, of course. We've seen it in Pirates of the Caribbean movies. We've seen it in countless movies across decades and decades of filmmaking, and not even to speak of all of the countless books there are throughout our history.
mm-hmm.
And so, but I was wondering, is it just the crowning achievement of science, or is it that no, he really does believe in the cause? And when you look at like these clone commandos that are around this facility too, are these all fitting that bill of they are this true believer type of group? And the only reason why they're allowed on Tantus is because of that belief system, that they have the utmost, belief in the cause, not just their technical and their abilities, but specifically because they do believe in this higher power. And that higher power is this almost deity in Palpatine.
Yeah. So I think if I'm answering your question correctly, I think Pershing's probably a little different. He does seem to have a better moral compass than the other two that we mentioned, which being Hemlock and then the doctor from Andor. And I think for those guys, I think they probably come in innocuous and innocent enough about it's really about the science. But then just because, they're falling under Palpatine and, evil power, that the power that exists there, the evilness that exists with Palpatine, I think they get addicted to that. And I think they go into this kind of mad scientist mode at that point. And so now it's about the science, but they don't really care who we hurt or how we go about doing it. It's purely about the science. And that is a little bit more skewed than somebody coming in and say, and still having a moral compass about him, saying we can't do this to real people. We can't test on live people. I mean, there's a difference, right? There. I think they probably lost that over time working for the Empire. And now with the Empire as full-fledged as they are, like who's going to challenge them, right? They've got free reign to do kind of whatever they want. So I do believe in that regard. I think they probably are in the quote believers group, if we want to lump them into that, because I think they kind of bought in on what Palpatine was selling. So, okay, so we get into the mission of the week kind of thing. They're talking to Sid and they're kind of negotiating back and forth. Wrecker's face on this is hilarious because he's just like, yeah, wow, we'll take whatever, 35, 45, whatever it was they were coming up with. He was all in on it. I have a question though, because so Sid finds out about this, and that's probably not important. I have questions about how she knows. I mean, she has her connections, and we just kind of have to give her the benefit of the doubt. But this seems like it's really highly classified. And they did mention, oh, well, it landed on the planet near a city, and so that's how she may have gotten word. But that aside, though, the question is really about, it feels like they are going to start pulling away from Sid, and I don't think it's going to be like a cold turkey, because it feels like we didn't get anything, unless the episode, where they kind of left him, she left him for dead, this last episode or whatever it was, where she didn't come back for them. Was that the big betrayal that they talked about potentially happening? And it feels like that wasn't enough, or it certainly wasn't telegraphed enough for that to be it. So I have a hard time thinking they're not going to break away from her just yet. I think they're still going to have her part of their normal operations. But, this episode at the very end, it feels like, okay, now they're going to Rex and they're going to Echo. And I mean, where does Sid fit into all this at this point?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit confusing. I like that they revolted a little bit though. Even Omega calls her out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was a really important moment. I think that was really important for us to see as an audience too, of saying that this is finally, like, there's finally a line. Yeah, we were all in this together, even though we're doing the challenging part, but there is a line when you don't come to our aid when we need you, because we have done it time and time again for you. And we had to go and find our own way. And of course, Sid's very much a results-driven type of person, right? For the good and the bad that brings. But is this I mean, but again, from like Tech's point of view, Tech's like, well, we need to do this one job because we want to do this diplomatically. We want to say, hey, okay, we do this last one. We're square. We've bailed you out. You've helped us out. We can all walk away more friendly. Tech's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we also know that Tech is not looking at reality all the time or all the subtleties of how these arrangements really work. And so
Right.
it does seem like, and again, they continue to not deliver in a lot of ways, right? I mean, how often have we seen them win and go back and actually bring something? So technically, they haven't even brought her the, what was the material they were mining for?
The Rhydonium?
Was it Rhydonium? No, Rhydonium was something else.
That was the other one.
Yeah, but anyway, whatever they were mining for, right? It was volatile and all that good stuff. They brought it, but they haven't delivered that back to her. And presumably they saved some of it right when they got out. They had some of it with them still. So they haven't really delivered a true mission. They haven't done their part in a while, it seems, or at least not consistently. So what would actually break them apart to where they felt, even up and square? But I'm with you though. I think this is a turning point though of getting them away from Sid. I think it's time. Because again, this is tried, it's true, it's old, it's time to move on, it's time to grow, it's time to move their story forward. And I think they're feeling that too within the context of the team. They're like, you know what, this is not our life. This is not what we want life to be. And we're just spinning our wheels. This is a endless loop. And it feels like now we see the true colors of Sid and that she's going to put us in these positions of not giving us a whole lot, expecting everything and then getting nothing and then holding it against us.
Right.
And we're just kind of done with that. Ipsium. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah. Dale Clutch Erdman coming in for us, man. Thank you. So, yeah, we'll see. I just don't know where Sid's going to fall into this at this point. We still got, how many episodes we have left? 7? Is that right? 5.
5, yeah.
5. My math is off. So 5 episodes, maybe. She's got to be a part of this in some way, but we'll see. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here on that, but so they land at they go ahead and take the mission because, why not? It's just simple cargo extraction.
How hard could it be?
How hard can it be? They get there, ship's abandoned, it's completely wrecked, right? Great images here, very dark images. This is where I was having a problem. Like, what are they looking at? I can't even see it. But Tech gets the power back online, I was like, oh, thank God, power's coming. We can see what's happening. And I thought, so Mega's like, this is where Mega's significance and her importance comes in because she's recognizing a lot of the equipment. Sounds like she may know some of the, I'm assuming a lot here, but because she was hanging around Nala Se so much, she probably knows some of the processes and procedures. And I think later on, she mentions about, I know that tech, I can help you guys get information about the cloning stuff, which is good. I mean, this kind of gives her another point, another point of value for the team. But so this is where Wrecker eventually finds a slime and we get our first kind of look at the Zillo beast. And I was with you, like at first I didn't think it, one, it's like crazy small compared to the Zillo beast that we had in the Clone Wars, which was like, massive at the time. So
did you recognize what it was at first?
To be honest, no, I would say no.
I looked at it, I think there's something familiar about this, but I could not place it. I couldn't figure it.
It's because its head was so bulbous.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the metamorphosis, right? The changing of it, right? It had to grow into its head. So yeah, much like my son. But yeah, so this is where we learned that, the walls were scratched at and we could kind of see like, it looked like there'd been a struggle there. And then again, another thing I was not expecting was him slurping up that arm where he like throws it right into his mouth. That's pretty gruesome for Star Wars, even though, you could argue we saw arms get cut off in episode 4, but for Clone Wars and for...
Oh, was that an arm? I don't know why I thought it was just a piece of equipment. I didn't know.
It was like that. I believe it was that trooper's arm, that commando arm.
Oh my gosh, I got to go rewatch this now. I watched this a bunch of times, so I would have caught that, but I didn't even pay attention to that part.
I think I had the audio description on, and I think that's where they said it, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so, wow. That is gruesome.
Yep. And then he eats electrostaff, and I'm like, okay, well, this is definitely a Zillo beast at this point because it's consuming energy.
Yeah, those parts started to really, anytime he started getting around the energy and munching, it seemed like, okay, we're going back here.
And then this is where, Tech blows aside, he shoots the generator or whatever it is, and this thing gets loose at that point, which is like, oh, great, here we go. And so at this point, Tech and Omega decide they're going to go in and try to get some more research, figure out what this monster is, find out whatever they can. and Wrecker and Hunter set off to go find this thing. And I thought they were going to go on foot. I'm glad they jumped into the Havoc Marauder because I was like, good luck. Yeah, I was thinking this is why they do this, and I don't. And this is where
it clearly would have been very effective. Their blasters didn't do anything to it.
Yeah.
So bring out the big guns.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's a good point. The Ordo Moondragon, 8 energy sources. So this is in what was it in? Was it Rebels that they found that Moondragon? I forget now what story that was, but it was sitting there eating energy.
No, that was in Bad Batch season 1.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe he's talking about something different.
That was the flashlight. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good times. And so really, I mean, the rest of for the most part, what's happening is just that, they're chasing this thing down. It's eating energy. It's constantly getting bigger. I mean, it's all Zillo Beast stuff. I was not expecting the gunships and the Star Destroyers to kind of pop in out of hyperspace. This is where it got really good and exciting. I mean, it was already pretty good and exciting, but now we've got this additive, which is the Empire showing up. I'm like, oh crap, this is going to be a mess now, because now you've got the Empire hovering right above orbit. You've got the Havoc Marauders sitting there chasing them. They're coming down. And I thought, if I was the Empire, this isn't the first viewing, I thought I would start blowing up all the energy sources. And that's exactly what they did. They took out the ship, took out all of the energy.
Clone
power
competence strikes again. It's amazing.
I know, it's surprising. Man, these guys are actually, they're on top of it.
It's not surprising when it's the clones, right? It's surprising that the Empire wants to get away from it because they're so dumb.
The Empire. Dumb. But yeah, I loved all of that stuff. I love the fact that they did that. And there was a great moment here when they blew up the ship, because Tech and Omega were trying to get out of there as soon as it started getting hit. And there's a great shot in there where they're running, they come around the corner, and he grabs her by the arm and he whips her around just as that blast, almost takes her out. Great animation, especially the effects. I know we've gushed about the explosions on this series since
they're
season
pretty incredible, though.
So good. It looks so real compared to it's all kind of, they did a good job of blending them together. But I love when stuff blows up in the show. It just looks so beautiful.
Yeah. To go back to when they were still in the ship, though, again, a couple of things that they found that were interesting was that it was Kaminoan, but it was different. And Omega, you could almost sense the betrayal in her of Nala Se, recognize that Nala Se was keeping something from her. I didn't get to see this piece of data. This may have been happening off world. And again, it just feeds that, the narrative that there were other things going on that maybe the Kaminoans were part of, but maybe they weren't. And that the Empire or the Republic at the time were already siphoning off and stealing some of this, this way of doing things, some of the equipment, trying to set up this contingency. Again, you just start to see that this was all in motion. This was all planned for a very, very long time, and took a long time to get in motion, to get into the right place before they could feel like they could destroy Kamino in order to control all this stuff.
So do you think there was any, because she didn't recognize it, we talked about, she said it didn't look like the stuff on Tapoka City, right?
Right.
But we did say that there may have been other cities on Kamino, maybe other cloning facilities. Is that fair? Or do you think this is they blew everything up, but they got it out of Nala Se's head on how to create it. And so they had so these are created outside of, by the Empire. And so, they look the same. They probably operate the same, but there's just something different on the signature, meaning that it was done by a third party. It's when you buy the cheap controllers for your video game system.
That's kind of what I took from it. It was more that they had the design, and maybe they had the equipment, but it had been either modified or it had started to be, revised and evolved into something else as they started to work on it. But they took the base design and they took the base equipment, it all had that same design elements to it.
Yeah.
And they just evolved it into something else over the years. Because again, I think a lot of this stuff clearly started way before the Empire was actually into effect for them to evolve that. But again, it hadn't really changed a lot of the fundamental aspects of how it was or how it was used or what it did. And that's why Omega was still so important to understand. Hey, plug into this thing. It does the genetic material side of things. Yep. So again, if they're cloning something, let's go straight to that one. That's the source.
So they eventually get this thing under control. I think by this point, it's gone another level in terms of growth. But the drop ships, they have that cannon that's on the front. And this is exactly how they tamed the beast, if you will, in the Clone Wars. And I don't remember, I didn't get a chance to go back and watch those episodes. Did they ever explain what it was doing? There was something about the energy that those things were shooting off that finally subdued the Zillo beast. That was the only way, because they couldn't penetrate its skin, but they somehow put it to sleep or made it lethargic or something like that. And it looks like that was exactly what happened here. So they have the tech to kind of, put this thing down if they need to. But did they ever explain that in the Clone Wars? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I didn't get a chance to watch it either. But yeah, and this came from the holding ship, right? They had the large disc come down from it, and it almost reminded me though of like how an ion cannon works. I know an ion cannon wouldn't be appropriate here, but that same type of thing where it disables a bunch of electronic equipment, it neutralizes electric currents and all of that good stuff. So that's what I assumed that this was doing. It was you fire the target, it kind of coats it, but it also it's kind of like taking melatonin for sleep, or you're just this natural occurrence in your body, for the Zillo Beast, because it has to sleep at some point and rest. So can you douse it with the opposite charge in order to neutralize it for a time, in order so you can transport it, you can capture it, whatever you want to do. So, but that's kind of how I interpreted how they were able to control the beast and at least subdue it for a time.
Yeah. I thought, again,
it didn't
I don't
last
want
that long, right? I mean,
Right.
the beast started waking not long after they had it in the containment unit.
Yeah. And they kept it in the Clone Wars. I remember they kept it subdued for a long period of time. Like, it was alive and awake. It just was kind of lethargic and not moving around until it got really pissed off and destroyed everything.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I don't want to gloss over. It's just, I mean, again, during the action sequences, I mean, there's so many good parts, but I really enjoyed just the pacing of all of the action sequences until they finally put this thing down. And they lift it up with they lift it back up into that research ship and took off with it. And I thought, okay, well, this is it. I guess, they're going to go do something with this and we'll never know. And that's fine. But what I was scratching my head on the first viewing was why they were rounding up all the villagers. Because this was the scene that we had in the trailer. And I think we assumed that this is exactly what they were doing. Again, not thinking that it was a Zillo Beast.
Right, not within this context, but
totally different. Did not see this. This would have been a Razor Crest moment for sure if somebody had called this one. But although I think Jeff mentioned that the Zillo Beast, although he thought it was the creature from like episode 2 or whatever it was. So all right. The question though that I had was, they kind of left it open at the very end about what they were going to do with the villagers because they had seen the Zillo Beast, right? So I'm presuming they're going to put these guys in like a death pit of some sort, or do you think they're going to lock them up? I guess what I'm asking is like, why is there so much secrecy around the Zillo Beast, just even seeing it, like being a witness to it, that they want to dispatch these folks?
I think some of it's control and what the Empire is up to. They don't necessarily want to broadcast all the things that they're doing. And if you see a Zillo Beast like that was, you get the stories, right, that go with it. And then the Empire captured it. And you start to question, especially if the Empire is already having pockets of resistance throughout the galaxy. And like now they've captured this beast that was supposedly dead just a few years ago. But now there's another one and they've actually captured it. And hey, it was repelling blaster fire. Nothing could really hurt it. It was consuming energy. It's a huge threat. What'd they do? You can just imagine, hey, it's a PR nightmare. But at the same time, you would just start to see that all of a sudden that just emboldens, that empowers. Like the Empire is doing things that we are not being told about. They're being secretive about it. They're not telling us what they're researching. Where did this thing come from? It seemed like it was on that ship to begin with. So where did it come? And again, we know these beasts exist throughout the galaxy in very limited number because they're kind of mythological in some ways, in these ancient type of creatures. But again, what is it they're doing? So I think that they would round up and just erase any kind of knowledge of it in the first place. They don't care, right? This is where the clones like confuse me though, because I mean, and this is why I've asked the believer question before. Because why would the clones just round up a bunch of people and knock a lady on the back of her head, to move forward, or between her shoulders to move forward? I mean, it just doesn't make sense with what they were doing before, and just following orders just doesn't feel like a good enough reason to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's a question, but what are they going to do with them to answer that question? I mean, I just assume nothing good, either in labor camps, or maybe they will just put them down. But I think probably more on the labor camp side, because they don't seem to care who they capture. They will just capture them. They will do something with them because they might need them later. Or like you've said a number of times, they just need the labor at this point. They just need people to go and do in materials and everything else in order to go and progress their goals and progress their grand designs for what they want to do across the galaxy.
Yeah, maybe they're sending them off to get started on the camps from Andor, working on that stuff.
Right.
So Yeah, and I would think too, honestly, if any of those clones had a moral conscience, they probably wouldn't tell them. Just round them up. They're prisoners, and we'll deal with
Oh,
them.
sure.
They don't know. It's higher clearance level in terms of what they're actually going to do with them. So that makes sense. I just thought it was interesting that they would round them up like that. But I think your point well taken. Like it sounds like it would be a PR nightmare, and they've got an image they're trying to portray still, right? They still have a Senate. They still try to play nice and act like they're really a part of this galaxy when it's not much longer before they just start burning everything down and blowing up entire planets, right? They finally hit their limit at that point.
Yeah, Rob joined the chat and he's did a little research on the fly for us here. He said that Wikipedia said that it was a lower power razor. I can't speak. Low power laser that put it to sleep with a shrug.
Okay.
And I very much that doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I don't know who made that one or put that one in there, but I'm sure that they're really great at Wikipedia.
That was mine.
Well, thank you for your contributions, Albert. It is a noteworthy addition, or whoever did it, but still, it doesn't really make a lot of sense in that regard. But whatever.
That is interesting. Why it would be low power? Because power just makes it
power is power, right?
Power. But okay. All right. But thanks, Rob. Either way, good night, man. He's leaving. He's at work right now. Okay. All right. So we talked about the okay, and then we finally get the big exposition. Okay, Tech really just he might have well just broken the wall, the fourth wall, and just started talking to us. But essentially, we get the recap. Palpatine, wanted the beast even back when he was Supreme Chancellor, before he was Emperor. There was genetic material that they could use to weaponize, which of course we talked about the armor. There could be other stuff too, but we just don't know about it yet. In the right hands he says in the hands of the right scientists, which I think is key here. And I think that's kind of where somebody like Nala Se comes in, right? Or some other Kaminoan. It would have to be a Kaminoan, I would think, that would be able to tap into this and do that.
Well, from a cloning perspective, yeah, but from all the other ones, there's probably others out there. But
Sure.
yeah, but anyway, point taken though, it has to be someone really premier.
Sure.
And at the
not
top
just anybody.
Not just anybody, not just any random clone or anything like that. It has to be the top people in the field.
And they didn't know where this thing was going, so that keeps Tantus off their radar, which is fine because I think we have a way to get back to that now at the very end. And then finally, that the Empire didn't destroy the cities of Camino to end cloning. They just wanted to make sure they were the only people doing it, right? It was all about control. If no one, if we can't have cloning, no one can. They made sure of that. So again, there are other cloning. Now we talk about this in one of the episodes before, but there were other cloning planets or races of some sort, but Kaminoans were known for their quality of work.
Right. And again, I think we talked about this last season, and whether we said this specifically or not, I think we at least tossed the idea out there of saying that, this isn't just Empire wanting to get rid of cloning. It was very much so they could just control it, and they don't, because the Kaminoans are out for the highest bidder. It's a business transaction. So do you trust them to not betray you? And the short answer to that one is the Empire trusts no one. So clearly, no, we don't trust them. So it would make sense for them to go and destroy that, especially if they've been accumulating all of this. Now, why they didn't accumulate more expertise was probably the arrogance of the Empire, which again is in ample supply in the arrogance side of things. So that makes a lot of sense that they wouldn't do that. But I think that was a short-sighted move. Again, like most things the Empire does, to where you should have brought more of those people along with you, not just your chief scientist and your. And again, we didn't know that Lama Su survived. I assumed he was dead. I think you may have called him that he was still alive because we didn't see a body. But
yeah,
well, why you say the prime minister and the former ambassador, and then the chief scientist? I mean, which of these is not like the others?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, at first when they were like, "Oh, are there any other ones?" and they're like, "Oh, well, Lama Su's around." I'm like, what's he gonna do? He wasn't a scientist. Don't get me wrong. He may.
Did you know it was him right away as soon as they said that? Yeah, there was another one. I
assumed it was him only because I didn't. Who there was?
Who else?
There's only
no one else was named. Tom Way's dead. We saw
Tom Way's dead. Yeah, exactly.
And he was the only other named one. And again, I think they said prime minister really quickly, but it instant said that it had to have been Lama Su. And I was like, well, what the hell is Lama Su gonna say?
Exactly. That's what I thought. I'm like, he's not gonna do anything. He can't. And
now we understand the
has,
importance. Yeah.
Right.
Now we know what he has. Yeah.
Right. He had one card to play, and he played it, which makes sense. I was going to say something about the Kaminoans and the cloning stuff. Yeah. Well, I was going to talk about Rampart. you had said, why would they? I mean, it's so short sighted, and I can only chalk it up to arrogance on the Empire's part. But I wonder too, like, was Rampart's mission at the end of season 1, like, was that really what he was supposed to do? Because I think, had they just put a little bit more thought into the project planning phase of this, right? Like, let's get out 10 of the scientists, because it's not just 2. There were a lot of
team. Yeah, get the team. Yeah,
grab
who's your
a team,
top team? Round them up,
move them off, then blow up the planet. So you're not in this situation where you've got one person that's holding the keys to the kingdom. This is not a good, strategy in terms of like workplace contingency plans.
Yeah. So I firmly believe that destroying Camino was always in the cards. But to your point, possibly, did Rampart move that timeline up a little prematurely from what they originally wanted to plan, or was that sanctioned? That part's a little gray, a little unclear there. But it certainly seems like they did not necessarily plan that one as well as they might wish they would have by now.
Yeah. It does make for exciting drama in a Star Wars television series, animated TV series, though. So
it does.
There is that.
If only it equated to an award in the most drama in an animated series.
Right. And the award goes to. Okay, so with all this information, they talk about we got to get this back over to Echo and Rex. Now, I'm fine with this, but why? Like, what do they care?
I think from Hunter's perspective, he doesn't know what else to do with this. He's like, wow, this got big.
This is big? Okay.
This got big, and this is Empire big, and this impacts directly keeping, I think, they'll finally recognize my little title or my headline card. But it's finally recognizing that this is beyond his scope and control, and this is a really big deal. And I think part of it to keep Echo and Rex safe, get them this information, because what are they doing with it? How do we play into this? But this is huge. This is something that could really, if they were close to cracking this, and again, they're not giving any kind of suggestion that they are, but this is really big. This puts everyone in danger, and this is another blanket on top of the galaxy if they were able to recognize this. And I think with Hunter, he recognizes how bad the Empire is, but he's like, oh my gosh, these guys were bad the entire time, and we just keep showing how much worse they were the entire time.
Yeah.
And it all starts with Palpatine. And this guy is just constant. I mean, you see the wheels turning in Hunter's head that, wow, what else don't we know that he was doing this entire time? You and I know this because we've seen this for 40 years, right? But I mean,
right, yeah.
Hunter's still relatively young.
He's a jerk.
Yeah, but again, he's just thought everything out. He knows the direction he wants to go. He sees the opportunities. He seizes on them. He rolls with the setbacks and makes those into opportunities as well. And I think it's just all finally coming, like Hunter finally recognized that there is nothing I can do on my own in this one. Our little team is great, but it only goes so far. What can Rex and Echo's bigger network or developing network do with this? And how do we get in front of this? And I think, again, cementing Hunter's inclusion of the Bad Batch into the greater cause here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I don't foresee them, I don't want to say that Echo and Rex are going to suddenly head off and try to figure out what was going on with the Zillo Beast. I don't think that's really the case. The lead here is that the Empire is up to something, and it was happening long before Palpatine was the Emperor, right? And
they're up to really big things, or potentially really big things. It's not just controlling a galaxy. It's like, no, this could destroy entire civilizations. We've seen it, and this could really, really be very, very bad to where we could never get out from under this.
Right. Yep. And I think that's with people like Echo and Rex specifically, right? They have the ears of the larger people at play here, and so this is enough. This is stuff that they can use to kind of galvanize and bring more people to the cause of look how corrupt these guys are. I think that's really what they're going to do with this information. I do wonder though if this is enough to pull Rex and Echo back into the series, because Echo says, "Hey, I'm coming back," and I don't know that he'll come back to the team specifically, because I think his place is probably better with Rex because it feels more natural to me. Right. But I can see where this is enough for them to make contact again, or play a larger part in wherever this series is going to go, or wherever this season is going to go here in just a few episodes.
Or it moves around from a Sid episode, thing of the week to a Rex, mission of the week type of scenario,
which I think people would be okay with.
They'd be way more okay with that than the whole Sid angle. Yeah.
Right.
Because then they would, presumably be doing things that are progressing the story more directly.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
The larger battle against the Empire rather than Sid's pocketbook.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not on the fringes anymore. We're actually starting to permeate and get into the primary bubble there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we get back to Tantus just really quickly. Emery and Dr. Hemlock meet up. They talk about that the Zillo Beast has gone down. They mentioned the other person, which we already talked about, Lama Su. He says he doesn't want the villagers as witnesses. We've kind of talked about that. And then eventually Lama Su walks out of the shuttle, as arrogant, as pompous as he is. And then, he mentions that the whole thing about being frustrated because they have the tech, but they don't have the they don't have the knowledge. And he makes that comment about failure means that you'll be in a cell too, Hemlock. Like he's making it very clear that nobody is above the Empire. Nobody's above Palpatine in terms of not delivering and something bad happening to you if you don't deliver. Right. So I don't know if he's foreshadowing there.
Well, but I think part of it is him showing his arrogance, but Hemlock already showing, and I think it's more Hemlock's response I found much kind of more interesting as well. Like, you misunderstand why you're here.
Yeah.
This is your one opportunity to get it right. And kind of like what he threatened Nala with of, I can, you saying you're not going to work isn't going to be good enough. I have ways to incentivize you, that you're not going to like. You just think about what I'm capable of. So clearly they have a history, of course, but we don't really know as much about all that. Hopefully that'll come out a little bit, at least for a couple of examples. But I think with this one in particular, like, Hemlock's giving him, like, this is your one chance. And I want to make sure my threat is very perfectly clear, kind of thing. And Lama Su, to his credit, says, indeed, yeah, let's talk. Hey, there's this girl. She's a clone. I chase her down.
Yeah, I don't think he's no dummy, though. I think he realizes, like, what is his value? Like, what's his worth? He's no longer, he's like one of two left of his entire species.
And you play that one card, like, what other cards do you really have?
Yeah.
In reality, we don't know that he has any other ones. It doesn't seem like he has any other ones, but
no.
Again,
he's a good prime minister or whatever. Or,
yeah, but again, Kevin, at this point, you're trying to survive another day at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Lama Su views it that way or not, but you and I as viewers definitely, well, we know he should be viewing it like that because they're all on borrowed time. As soon as their usefulness is done, they either get thrown into labor camp or they get offed. And I imagine the Kaminoans don't go into labor camps. They probably just end up under the dirt.
If she is the only Kaminoan left, with the exception of Lama Su, wouldn't it make sense for them to clone the Kaminoans?
And the ambassador.
And then rebuild, teach them as scientists? And
you would think, yeah, Just brainwash them.
Exactly. Make them believers. They have the DNA in them that make them good scientists in cloning people. Who knows? All right, sorry.
Yeah, but again, how good would they be at it without the Kaminoans?
Yeah.
And if you're a Kaminoan, you're like, well, no, I'm not doing this. This is blasphemous.
Right. So yeah, this all kind of ties back to Omega, right? He says, look, if you want more information from her, the only way to make her talk is you're gonna have to go find this little girl. And he says, very interesting or intriguing or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can see the wheels. You can see the wheels in Hemlock's head, right?
Yeah.
All the possibilities, like, whoa. It was a girl attached to Nala. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
A girl clone? Wait, what?
Right.
What? Why? You can just imagine all the questions. And so I'm wondering how much this is.
We have the same questions, my friend.
Exactly. Yeah, this is where Lama Su, you're questioning, like, how much will he actually share, all at once, or is this where he could draw this out a little bit to, again, prolong his life? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, it was.
No,
I just love seeing the wheels turning in this character. I think I'm gonna like Hemlock because he's really sinister feeling. Doesn't have any real morals here as well, which just makes him really dangerous, but still super intriguing to follow about what it is he will do and how is he going to get this information out, and what is that going to mean for the larger story here for the Bad Batch.
The one thing that I walked away with from that last part there was in season 1 when we first met Omega and we knew that Nala she saved Omega's life, right? She allowed her to escape. And so we had speculated then that, and again, there wasn't a lot to really work off of there, but they definitely had a connection. And I think we said, well, that's probably the only mother she's ever known, even though it's not even her own race. But you could tell Nala cared for her a lot. And I can see where this is now coming back into play, right? Because they're going to use this if they can get her, which I have a hard time wrapping my head around. Like, how is Hunter or Omega, anyone, going to let her out of her sights or put her in a position where she's going to get abducted? But it feels like that's going to happen. Who knows?
Right.
But nonetheless,
wait, hold on. You say that, but yet they send her on missions by herself all the time.
Well, maybe that's it.
In the heart of
Maybe
Coruscant.
they overextend, what she's
Catches up to
capable of
him.
doing.
Catches up to him at some point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I just love the idea that, she cares about her that much that she is going to be willing, like if they have Omega in their clutches, and it's a matter of sparing her life or not allowing anything to happen to her, Omega, then Nala Se is going to do whatever they ask her to do.
So let's revisit this for a second. Is it that Omega is special and Nala Se knows that, or is it just she's just special to Nala Se? I need you to choose
like that
one.
idea.
And what? No, you've been preaching that she's special for
She's special.
over a year
She's force
now.
sensitive. Yes. Yeah.
I just didn't know which. If you had to pick one, which one would it be? Right?
No. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
Still feels like
so
there should be something unique about Omega.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a possibility, but then it kind of pulls away from Nala Se just being a good person and loving Omega for, being who she is and not what she's capable of doing. But that is very Kaminoan of her too, to be like, she's an asset just like everybody else. She has an ability that I want to preserve or someday want to experiment on, or,
Right.
whatever. That's kind of cold hearted, but that really is kind of them. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see a different version of the Kaminoans, and maybe Nala Se is finally that, breaks the mold in that regard.
Yeah, we kind of saw it with Tanway a little bit, right? It seemed like she was a little bit different. And again, we have to kind of go back and think about Nala Se. She sent Fennec Shan. Like I was talking to Dragon Abyss the other day. I was trying to remember, like, why was Fennec Shan like trying to kill her? She wasn't trying to kill Omega. She was trying to bring her back to Nala Se.
Mm-hmm.
Really a rescue mission, right? And so I think it's been a while since we revisited some of that. So we kind of forget that was really what her intention was, because she felt like she was safer with her, and then she could move her to wherever she wanted in a more controlled fashion.
Yeah, and then cut her open and experiment on her or whatever.
Yeah, the usual. Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
That's what they do.
Yeah, she's going to cut the force out of her.
Oh.
That's how it works.
See,
right?
maybe she has a high midichlorian count, and that's why Nala Se wants her, because she...
M count, Albert. M count.
It's midichlorian.
We don't say the M word.
Well, okay. So that's how it ends. We get that closing shot of Mount Tantus. Beautiful place that we'll never see again this season, but
it's a paradise. We're going back. Easy killer.
I think we're going to go back. Yeah. Okay, so all in all, I mean, again, I enjoyed this episode a lot because it was, it kind of went back to the Zillo Beast, wrapped things up there. We got more information on what was going on Tantus, or Nala Se's at, the disposition of Lama Su, like anybody cared about that. We also got some, a tie now back to Omega. It looks like she's on the radar of the Empire. So it's all good stuff. I mean, this is all kind of setting up, hopefully we get back into this. We keep on with this, right? Like you mentioned that you were talking about earlier, and I was thinking about, I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. Yes, it was kind of a mission of the week. However, it did feel a little bit different because there was more of the myth, this larger mythology tied into this. And so maybe this is kind of a transition episode where we're going to start moving away from, what we had with all of the other side mission stuff for Sid, and more into stuff that's really focused on what's going on with the Empire. And now, apparently, their search for Omega, because of her importance, because of either she's important or she's somebody that can drive Nala Se to do what they want her to do, which is ultimately clone Palpatine.
Right. It kind of feels like, if you go back to kind of an action figure analogy, it feels like we've picked all of the figures we're going to play with now. We've decided who they all are for the most part. And now we're kind of setting the stage to get the scenario quite right before we really unveil what our intentions are, like as we start to play. It's kind of feel like that's how the season has gone now, with some fits and starts and stuff like that. We've had some side quests and whatever, but now we're finally at that moment, like, okay, now it's time to we're enough with the preamble. Now we're getting into the core stuff of what the season is, and all of this other stuff was the backstory that we wrote,
right,
as we start playing. Oh, well, no, this happened when we were before, this is why so and so. It kind of feels that way, right? And actually, I was watching an interview with Jon Favreau, and I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel, and he was actually talking about action figures, and you came to mind of saying, oh, this is he came out and admitted it. He's like, yeah, we're just playing with action figures in the Mando universe.
I don't know how anybody doesn't see that, but go on. Sorry.
I don't know. It's exactly what it was. I mean, he said it pretty much verbatim. So it confirmed all of what you've been saying for 2 or 3 years now. So well done, sir. But no, I think it's kind of, I think this is cool. I think we're finally getting to the point now we're going to see the overall story. I think we're going to build off all of these other events that have happened. I don't think none of it's to waste. And even if they were smaller moments or something like that, it still felt good storytelling, good world building, good character building, things that are enjoyable to watch. They're entertaining. And so I think all of that just is going to work in, and that helps deliver. It's kind of like what we talked about with Andor. Andor a little slower at the beginning, but all of those things had payoffs as we went through the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I think that's okay. I mean, it's okay to do that, and again, the mission of the week thing is probably the one sticking point for a lot of this stuff, because it's just what we've had for a season and a half and in various ways. But now we can start to see what that actually looks like. And again, Sid, I think there has to be a payoff with Sid at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, let's resolve that relationship once and for all. What this team means to Sid. Really, that's the question, right? We know what the team kind of thinks of Sid. They view her somewhat positively. She's done a lot of good things for them. But we have really no idea how she feels about them, except for the moments where she's felt guilty. So it'd really be nice to resolve that in that kind of way. I think that's something I'd like to see come back and finish up, and not leave that as a loose end for a season 3 or something. Let's just go and resolve that now. It seems like we're in the right time, right place, that in the next few episodes, that should be resolved.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. I mean, the whole Sid thing, it's going to go one way. That either they're going to part their ways and we don't see her again, or the Empire is going to catch up with her, because she's talked about it in a couple of episodes, at least, both this season and last, about, hey, it's only a matter of time before the Empire's here. Don't you want to retire, get away, do all that stuff? She knows the time is coming too for her at some point. So if that time comes, then I can see where maybe she's like, okay, who do I got left here? Well, I've got these guys. Maybe she does side with them and she does become part of the large rebellion. I think there's probably a lot there that still needs to happen because of, where she's left off, or where we left off with her and her relationship with them. But I can see her, out of no other reason than there's just not a lot of options, join the other side, because these guys are corrupt and they just kicked me out of my place and out of my occupation.
And again, I don't think this isn't the primary story to resolve or anything like that. I'm not suggesting any of that.
Sure.
It's more of a comment of, I think I'm ready for that to be resolved. And I think we're finally at the point now where the team is at that point where they're ready to move forward.
Right.
So it's like breaking up with someone. Like, okay, man, I know I need to make progress, but it's time to break away from this person because it's just not working out. It's not good for either of us. So let's just move forward. Or it's good for one of you, but not the other.
Yeah.
So it's time to break
let
up
them back in your life, and then you regret it.
Just stop it. Just stop it.
Sorry.
But it's time to break up with Sid. I'm there. I hope Sid makes the right choice with saying we can still be friends.
Yeah. Jeez. All right. Well, life lessons there from Jonesy. But yeah, we'll leave it there.
Do not take any life lessons from me, by the way.
So we'll leave the episode there. And yeah, I mean, overall, it was good. I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
I like this one a lot. I think it was a lot of fun. I think all the excitement of the horror aspect of it was really cool to see again visually in the experience. But I think also those payoffs really made it worthwhile. So I really like this episode a lot. It's definitely one of my towards the top of the list for this season so far, I think.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I didn't really
top
care
of
for
our
the
list.
I didn't really care for the Zillo Beast episodes in the Clone Wars, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm a big Godzilla fan, so I was like all about the Zillo Beast. I thought it was
for me it was
wonderful.
Such a shock. It was like, why the hell do we have a Monster of the Week Godzilla thing going on in Star Wars? Like, to me at the time,
so early on in the seasons, yeah,
10 years ago, I was like, what is this series doing? Mm-hmm. It was still fresh enough to where it wasn't really clear what it was, and we had the weird start with the movie that kind of came actually later, and it was still very much getting its feet under it in that way. And so this was 10 years ago, so my interest level in Star Wars was a little bit different than it is right now as well.
Right.
So.
But you're right. It was a big departure from what we had already seen. And it would become formulaic, right? I mean, we would see this many times over the next, 7-8 seasons or whatever it was now.
But what's really comical about it is that Dave Filoni, when he wrote those episodes, the Clone Wars episodes, he didn't think George Lucas would actually approve them. He just did it because he loved that. I mean, that was all Dave Filoni of all things, right? Those were him. That was him, what he was trying to do. Mm-hmm. He's like, there's no way George is going to approve this. Somehow it worked out.
Rubber stamping stuff, man. That's how we got Mara Jade. I'm kidding.
I think that's
Mara
quite
Jade.
how that worked. But,
no, I know. Yeah. I know. So, segue that one.
Well, if you like awkward scientists, no, silence. If you like awkward silence, you'll love the live stream because it's all typing and text. So, no, we do a live stream every week. That was the worst one ever, by the way.
No, not yet.
But anyway, yeah, if you'd like to come out and view us online, Sundays and Thursdays, we're live, cantinacast.com/YouTube. We'd love for you to come out. Thank you to Jonathan, Stephanie, Music Train, Sky, Lauren, Nase, JJ Skywalker, Riley, Qui-Gon J, Dale, and of course, Rob. If I missed anybody, my sincerest apologies. We see you all in the background as well. Thank you for that. We will be back on Thursday for more Mandalorian for Chapter 18. Heard it's a bit of a doozy, so you're not going to want to miss that one. It's probably going to blow the doors off the internet, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We'll be back for that one. Okay, let's see. What else we got going up? We've got not much longer before we get to Celebration, so we'll probably do some things leading up to that soon rather than later. I know Lauren is hard at work at some additional Jedi News Archive stuff as well.
Yep, Jedi Novel Archive. There we go.
Jedi Novel Archive.
Yeah, lots of books coming out here pretty soon. The official review for Jedi Battle Scars, I think is what it's called, right? The follow-up to the Jedi, or the prequel, I guess, to the new video game Jedi Survivor from Fallen Order.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got that right. She's already got the preview out there for it, the sneak peek, so go check that out over at cantinacast.com/YouTube. She has a whole playlist over there for all of her amazing content, and again, that one's coming soon. We've got another High Republic novel. Cataclysm is going to be on the horizon here as well, so be on the lookout for that. She's going to have that coverage for you as well. She's been doing the comic books, like the Yoda comic, the High Republic comic. So a lot of great stuff going in there. Some of those will get bundled a bit, but really great content coming up. And like you said, we got Celebration coming up. We've got, all of this content just in general is just going to consume our lives here for the next couple of months. But a pretty exciting time, man.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to roll credits. And sorry, I didn't get to who was the new person's name? Sorry, missed that one.
Josh.
Yeah, Josh, right? So Josh, apologies. I didn't get you in the credits here, but I'll get you next time, buddy. So we'll see you then.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.